Now, a name that was brought up as being on the move, Jonathan Allen is being permitted to seek a trade from the Washington Commanders. Great defensive tackle, multiple-time Pro Bowler. His final year of his contract's coming up, which he is not guaranteed the $15.5 million for this final season. He recently signed a 4-year, $72 million extension after he had 2 consecutive Pro Bowls. They also recently, and seemingly in preparation of this, they extended DeLeone Payne and they drafted Jer'Jon Newton last year in the second round. Now, I'm afraid to talk about defensive tackles with you. I was kind of thinking about this today. You hate defensive tackles, and you're just so blindly playing into the trope of, hey, former offensive lineman doesn't want to see a defensive tackle succeed. So I'm a little afraid to ask your opinion on this is like, one, should they move off of Jonathan Allen? Do you think that they should be trading him?
You're painting me into a very negative light here.
You only speak negatively about defensive tackles.
I speak negatively about drafting them in the first round. That's what I speak negatively
about. What about
about.
paying them?
I'm fine with paying a good defensive tackle if they're impactful. I love Grady Jarrett. I hope Atlanta overpays Grady Jarrett to keep that leader on the team. I hope Washington overpays Jonathan Allen to keep him on the team. He suffered through all that shit that they put him through since they drafted him. He was just a soldier in the worst era of Washington football, and now the year after they have a 13-3 season. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for all the hard work, buddy. We're not going to pay you. Someone else will. Maybe you'll get your number up in your name in the Ring of Fame. But no, you won't, because everyone wants to forget about the 8 years that you suffered through while you were here. Keep Jonathan Allen. I think he's just an absolute physical freak on the inside. I wish he was a bit meaner. I wish he had a little more Ndamukong Suh in him. People are talking about, like, there's that photo going around. I think Warren Sharp tweeted it, like, a year ago. Like, how do you stop this play? And it's the tush push. I think a Ndamukong Suh that's stepping on people, honestly, would stop that play.
Probably.
And you need a dirty defensive tackle to stop that play. You need Jonathan Allen to get ejected from a game for stomping Cam Jurgens for he was wrapping up my ankle. Any BS excuse you want. Yeah, if you're getting bullied on that play, you need a defensive tackle that's going to be mean. They're a little too soft now. They're a little too flashy, a little too nice. I think a hard-nosed defensive tackle, like Jonathan Allen should be retained.
I think it's kind of missed. Man, that guy is getting really close to the window.
Oh, yeah.
Are we going to have to, like, really decide if we're going to do this at a different time because this asshole is
Just
doing
power through.
I know,
Fine.
but I just don't know if it's getting picked up on the mics or not. I don't know if it's getting picked up in the background. But to talk about Jonathan Allen, it's hard to come by high-level defensive tackles on a consistent basis like Jonathan Allen. Now, they're in a situation, though, that they don't need to keep him because they have 2 premier players in DeLeone Payne and Jer'Jon Newton. Jer'Jon Newton could have continued to improve and explode into a premier player on this roster. I know that Commanders fans were super frustrated about drafting him last year, but having the option just to turn to him a much cheaper option instead of having to try and pay Jonathan Allen a long-term extension, it's smart roster building. I look at, though, like the first team, and I know we talk a lot of Lions as a destination for a lot of these defensive linemen. I really think that Jonathan Allen in Detroit would be a home run. I think that would be a perfect landing spot for him because you can, at the back end of the first round, potentially draft another edge rusher to play opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and then you throw in Jonathan Allen into the mix. Their issue down the line, down the stretch, was a lack of depth and a lack of health. You have Jonathan Allen on that defensive line, it goes from being really good to one of the best in the NFL.
That's true. Liam McNeil is one of the defensive tackles for Detroit. He's very good. DJ Reader, also very good. But obviously both need to be healthy. But they have a really good starting 4. And people were upset with the Newton pick because it came after the Fedarian Mathis pick, which came after the DeLeone Payne pick, which came after the Jonathan Allen pick, and also there was a Chase Young pick sprinkled in there. So there was a lot of first 2-round exhaustion from Washington fans, seeing guys get drafted, bolstering the defensive line, and 6-win season and 5-win season. But now there's a quarterback in town that can actually, win games for them. Abandoning talent, abandoning a captain, it doesn't make sense to me. This would feel like, remember when Adrian Peterson went to Washington and he had a fine year in the late stages of his career? It's not like he was a Pro Bowler, but the next year they cut him and he was a veteran locker room leader and one of the best. He was a top 3 running back on that roster, and they let him walk, and the team fell into chaos the next season. It's not like they weren't out of chaos the previous season with Adrian Peterson, but that's a guy that you keep. Jonathan Allen is a guy that I want to keep in my locker room. He's absolutely entrenched in the community in DC, grew up in Virginia. Him going to Detroit, that would be like a Deshaun Hand. I think he went to Detroit out of college. They both grew up like an hour south of me. But yeah, it would help Detroit. He would help any team. It would be like a Danielle Hunter in Houston. Like, where's this guy been? Because he's just buried in Washington on a bad team forever. Comes in, gets 10 sacks for you. Like, oh, this guy's pretty good. This is a pretty good ad.
You actually just mentioned the other destination, and I think would make a lot of sense for where he could land. I mean, him ending up with the Houston Texans that need
be happy for him.
Some impactful interior guys. I mean, talk about a defensive line that would go from being great to elite.
Yeah.
Put Jonathan Allen with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. That would be one of the best fronts in the NFL. They'd be a top 5 front in the entire league if you were able to make that happen. Outside of that, I don't know if I see anyone else. If I'm Jonathan Allen, I would selfishly want to end up on a team that's
has
competing.
To be a playoff team.
Yeah, because, I mean, outside of that, like, where else are we shipping them? We shipping them to Cincinnati? Are we sending them to Cincinnati? Cincinnati's not a bad one.
They'd be competitive.
He'd be good.
He'd be good wherever he went. And Cincinnati could make a push for the playoffs.
Here's one thing that sucks for the Commanders. This is such a good defensive tackle class that I don't think many of these teams are going to pick up the phone and be like, oh, yeah, we'd much rather have Jonathan Allen than just draft somebody in the first round. I think a lot of these teams that need defensive linemen could take 2 throughout this draft. Take one in the second round, take one in the 5th round, or like wherever, and get 2 quality starters. The defensive line class is that good.
Well, do you see what my dumb team is doing? You see the news from them? 45 combine interviews scheduled.
Okay.
Atlanta. All defensive players. They don't have one interview scheduled.
That's a good thing. Why is that a dumb move?
No, I'm just calling them a dumb team because they're bad and they lose games. But yeah, they're not even sending offensive scouts to the combine. It's all their defensive personnel only. So it's going to be a fully locked and loaded defensive class. And your insight is being reflected by the big boys, Joe. So that's impressive.
Is there a list of which guys they're interviewing with, or is it just a number?
It doesn't matter. They're going to draft the guy. He's going to get 6 sacks over 2 years, and he's going to get cut.
What about Jonathan Allen in Atlanta? Would you support that?
Cream my pants.
Really? You're that pro Jonathan Allen?
I love Jonathan Allen. I really do. He's
for the biggest defensive tackle hater on the planet.
I don't want my team drafting them in the first round. I love Grady Jarrett. Oh, Grady Jarrett, I love you so much. 5th round guy. And you know what? One exception to the rule, one of my big favorite, Jonathan Babineau, first round guy. But you know who superseded Jonathan Babineau? Next defensive tackle taken in the first round for Atlanta? Perea Jerry. Remember him?
No, I don't. Actually, I have no idea who that is.
Oh, I do. A bust is who he is.
It's like being shocked that cats hate mice, that you hate defensive tackles.
It's just that you can find I just can't stand, and it's this specific.
Every agenda, this is the one agenda that you've pushed the most.
Here's the thing. It's this specific type of defensive tackle. If I'm looking at it like somebody taking Aaron Donald in the first round, even looking at him out of college, you're saying that guy can rush the passer and beat guards and centers on pass rush moves. This whole, we want a big run stopper in the first round.
This I don't disagree with.
That is awful.
I don't disagree with this.
But it needs to be a premier pass rusher on the interior for me to take him in the first round. Everyone else is just eating up space, doing their quality on the team, but that is not a value of a first-round pick.
I would slightly adjust the perspective on that. If you can see visible upside for a guy to be at least a 5+ sack guy in the NFL, he's worthy of a first-round pick. Kenneth Grant, Tyleik Williams, Mason Graham are the 3 guys that I would willingly consider. Omar Norman-Lott's probably the 4th that I would consider in the first round, because they all are great against the run, and all in different forms and fashions have shown upside to rush the passer. So that's where I agree with you on this. Mozzie Smith was the perfect example of a dipshit move of a defensive tackle that you don't take in the first round.
He was taken late in the first round also,
yeah.
And it was still a reach. I don't want Tyleik hopping back in here, trashing, asking questions about the show. I don't think he's thought about us once at that one time.
If his pass rush
that he hopped in the chat
that deep
though.